Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to work on these amazing outside borders so we can add them to our main body quilt. I'm really excited to stitch out this quilting design. So let's go ahead and go over to the table and I'm going to show you how we calculate what we need in order to make these borders. Okay, so we're going to be working on this outside border all the way around this quilt. Okay, and I kind of did some calculations. See if you can see that there. And some math as to what we need in order to make these borders. Okay, I do my borders calculations a little bit differently than what Kimberbell has in the book. So let me walk through how I do the calculations. I know that I'm going to be using the 2-inch design for this project, okay? And in doing so, I want to cut my fabric strips 3 inches wide. I want to allow for seam allowance, and I want to allow for a little bit of shrinkage. As we quilt the blocks, it will pull in just ever so slightly. So by the time we're done, I can trim these borders up to 2.5 inches wide, and it'll be perfect to add into the project. So our fabric strips are going to be 3 inches wide to begin with. All right. For the top and the bottom borders, I've measured my quilt. And remember, I added inner borders, which I showed you in the last video. So my quilt with these inner borders is 18.5 inches across, top and bottom. Okay, so measure your quilt and see how far across it is. All right, we are going to be adding this top and bottom border on after we sew the side borders. Okay, a little close there. So the top and the bottom need to be longer in order to also cover that side border that we're going to add. We're going to add the sides first and then the top of the bottom. So this goes on top of that new border we're going to add. So we need to allow additional space. All right. So I'm telling you to cut your strips for the top to be 28 inches long. That, again, my measurement was 18.5, but I'm allowing extra for the 2-inch strips that are come over here. 18, 19, 20, 21, that would be 22. I'm allowing a good 2.5, or actually I think I'm allowing 3 inches across, and then a little bit extra fabric on each side. So I am saying cut your strips 28 inches by 3 inches wide. Okay, 28 inches long by 3 inches wide. You're going to need 2 of those, one for the top and one for the bottom. For the 2 side borders, my quilt measures 59 inches with my inner borders, so I'm allowing 65 inches for this strip. Mind you, this strip again is going to be equal to the top of the border and is going to be equal to the top of the quilt and the bottom, and then we're going to add the top and the bottom borders on top. So those need to be extra long to cover that side border. Okay, and you're going to need 2 of those, one for the left, one for the right. So we want the quilted area on this fabric to be a minimum of 23 inches long for the top and the bottom, and 59 inches long for the sides. Now that is based on my quilt measurement. If you haven't done the inside borders like I did, your measurements are going to be a little bit shorter. So we're going to use the 2-inch quilting design that we have in Kimberbell, and I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so this is the instruction sheet that comes with the Halloween borders when you purchase the design on Kimberbell.com, and there's a link in the description below where I can take you to the website where you can purchase these amazing quilting designs. So we're going to be using the 2-inch designs in this project. Let me blow these up a little bit. Aren't those fun? I cannot wait to see. It's like almost like a bookcase shelf that we're going to be stitching out. Those are going to be fun. So in using those 2-inch designs, we have to figure out what combination we can use to get to our minimum stitch length. Okay, now if you remember down here, there's a chart. I'm going to just reference this chart, and then you can refer to it as you need to calculate your design combo that you want. Okay, so for the top of the quilt and the bottom of the quilt, I need a minimum of 23 inches to reach my desired length of quilting. Okay, this is a little bit different than the last video because the inner borders, I wanted to center them in the top and the bottom and the sides of the quilt. So I didn't want to have quilting all the way across this border. Okay, I wanted to center them. The outer borders are different. I want quilting to go all the way from the left all the way over to the right. Okay, and continue down. And then, let me blow this up a little bit. We will be trimming off some of this quilting. And you're like, no, we don't want to trim quilting off. I know. But to get a continuous border like this, it is nearly impossible to get a quilting design combination to fit it exactly. And if you notice right here, here's a bottle. You can't really see it. It's a little blurry. That was actually cut off by Kimberbell in the process. So this is how we do it. We're going to stitch continuous borders, and then if we have to trim it off to fit the quilt perfectly, that's what we're going to do. This quilting design actually lends itself to that because it's continual bottles and books and stuff. So it won't hurt if it looks like it's slightly cut off from back here. You will never see it. Okay, but that gives you continual stitching all the way across. So then I'm going to use this chart to get as close as I can to my required amount of quilting. Now, this is just a reminder, this is the file name that you're going to see on your USB flash drive. This is not the size of the design. You need to go to the embroidery field here, and it will pull up the embroidery field that is required to stitch this out. This is going to be very close to the actual embroidered stitch field. And the reason I say that is when I did my inner borders and I went back and measured them, they came in just over 13 inches long, even though it's a 14-inch field. So this is pretty accurate as to what your finished quilting design is going to be. All right, this first number is just the width, and this may or may not be because this is going to have those tack down stitches where we tack down the fabric, because that is considered in the embroidery field. But I'm mainly looking right now at the length. How long is this design going to be approximately to figure out what I need? So say for example, I need 23 inches for the top and bottom borders. I've selected that I'm going to use a 14-inch file, which will yield 14 inches. Then I'm going to use a 10-inch field. File name's 2x10. It's going to give me 9.45 inches. That equals 23.45 inches, and I need 23 inches. So it will stitch out slightly larger, not quite half an inch larger than what I need, and that's what I want. So I only end up cutting off just a little bit. Okay, for the two sides, I also am going to be using a 2-inch wide quilting design here. So I need it to be 59 inches. So I'm going to do 3 hoopings of the 14-inch, 3 of them. Then I'm going to do 1 hooping of the 12-inch file, which will give me 11.75 inches. And then I'm going to do 1 hooping of the 7-inch file, which will yield me 6.98 inches. So for my two sides, I need 59 inches. That combination will yield me 60.73 inches. So I'll end up cutting off just a little bit on that. But I want to have more inches in the combination than I need. So I can trim off just a little bit of the design, and I will have one continuous looking quilting design with no spaces on any of the ends. And that's the look that we would like to have to match Kimberbell's design on this quilt. All right. Okay, so it would be handy if you go ahead and print this chart out so that you have this. This is on page 7 of the border instructions. And I keep this handy because I can easily say, okay, this is what I need. This is the design size. And then this is this actual embroidery field size that it's going to yield me. Okay? Okay, so go ahead and take a screen print. Let me get this down here. There you go. You can take a screen print of my calculations, and you can kind of follow along and do your own calculations based on this math here, what you need. All right. So if you had done the inner border like I have, this is what I need to cut. My fabric, I'm cutting 2 strips that are 28 inches long by 3 inches wide. I'm cutting 2 strips that are 65 inches long by 3 inches wide. Then I need to cut some fusible, and we're talking Paylon 860 or SF 101 that you will be fusing to the back of these strips to give it support. You want to give that cotton fabric a little extra support on the back side to help it maintain its shape and everything, and to do really nice stitches on the top of these fabric strips. So my fusible, I'm going to cut in the same combinations as the strips. Now my fusible is on a bolt and it's 20 inches long. So I'll cut 3-inch strips that are 20 inches, get the majority of that covered, and then I'll calculate, okay, now I need another strip that's 8 inches long by 3 inches wide so that my entire strip is supported with that fusible. Okay. Then the last thing I need to cut is batting. Okay, my batting is going to be in this combination. I need a piece of batting for each and every section of this border that we're going to stitch, because we have multiple hoopings to get this done. So I'm going to cut my batting 3 inches wide by 14.5, which is 1/2 inch longer than the design file that I'm going to use. All right, I need 8 of those. 3-inch by 10.5, I need 2. 3-inch by 12.5 inch, I need 2. And 3-inch by 7.5 inches, I need 2. So I would do your math for the width of your project and the length of your project. If you haven't done the inside borders, again, your numbers are going to be less than what I have here. Mine allow for that inner border. Okay. And then I would do a chart like this saying, okay, this is how long I need to cut my fabric and how many pieces. Then do your homework and do this prep. Once you've got everything cut, when you have fabric that is longer than the width of the fabric, width of the fabric means off the bolt, it could be 42 inches, could be 44 inches. When you need a 65-inch piece, you're going to cut one, the width of the fabric, and measure that and say that gives you 42. And then you're going to do the math and cut the difference. Then you need to go to your sewing machine and just put those right sides together, kind of like this, line them up, and then sew a 1/4 inch seam on there and sew those 2 pieces of fabric together. Then you're going to go and grab your fusible, and you don't need to sew that together. You can just place those down on the back side of your fabric strips. Make sure you use a pressing sheet when you do this, and fuse that fusible with your iron to the back of those strips. You want fusible along the entire length of the strip to support those stitching. So this is your homework to get ready for the outside borders. Once you have this done, come back to my channel and I will have the next video where we will start stitching out these outside borders. All right, so stay tuned here on Jolly Molly TV for more fun on this project. We're almost done. You've got this. We're going to get it displayed before Halloween. All right, so until I see you next time, Take care and happy stitching. Bye bye.